the issues affecting Asia's animals and the stories of the people working on their behalf. We'll be taking you on a tour of what's been happening lately in the animal protection space around Asia and also bringing you updates from our huge network of animal protection organizations and our many working groups. Welcome to the Asia for Animals podcast.
Hi everyone and welcome to this episode of Asia for Animal podcast. I'm Dino, AFA Communication Coordinator, along with my colleague Eileen here, also a coordinator of Asia for Animals Coalition. August 30th is Grief Awareness Day, highlighting a deeply rooted emotion within us all and providing a focal point for us to recognize the important place that grief plays in many of our personal lives, and at the same time, a chance to explore this place in emotional lives of many non-human animals as well.
Hi everybody, my name is Eileen. As Dino introduced, I'm the coordinator of Asia for Animals Coalition. Today, we're going to share with you the similarities in emotions that animals share with humans. This podcast episode is part of AFA's recently launched project called One Life. One Life was actually originally developed by Dave Neal, the Global Director of Animal Sentience and Welfare for Animals Asia, and has been delivered via Animal Asia's education programs in China and Vietnam with great success for a number of years. In one of our previous podcast episodes, Dave presents One Life in more detail. One Life has now come under the Asia for Animals Coalition's wing. It is a database of education resources which NGOs can use to promote concepts of animal sentience. The idea is that any organization can use the presentations and articles as templates and script to deliver educational talks in schools or communities, which in turn will help people understand the ways in which animals share many cognitive and emotional abilities, as well as needs with humans, and therefore why they deserve our respect and protection. We're very excited to extend all these materials to these podcast episodes so that anyone can learn more about animals and their sentience. But not everyone might be familiar with the concept of sentience. Sentience is the ability for individuals to experience sensations and emotions such as pain, joy, fear, and grief. Humans are sentient beings, and One Life delves into the sentience of animals. Animal sentience is more and more acknowledged on the scientific and also on the political scene, with over 30 countries in the world, such as Spain, Sweden, Tanzania, New Zealand, or the UK, recognizing animals as sentient beings. In today's episode, in honor of Grief Awareness Day, myself and Dino will share with you one of the many emotions animals share with us humans.
Grief is multifaceted, although conventionally focuses on the emotional response to loss. Grief has physical, cognitive, behavioral, and social dimensions. Individuals expressing grief are likely to exhibit a departure from their usual behavioral patterns. They may eat or sleep less, act listless, or agitated. They might also attend their friend's party or isolate themselves from social situations. If these sound like a familiar human behavior in response to loss, then it may come as a surprise. Thanks to the advancement in the study and understanding of animal behavior, that we are now seeing signs of behaviors that we interpret as grief in animals from a range of species that experience the loss of those that they have become bonded within their lives. Grief appears is just one of many emotions that animals share with us humans. There are many accounts of non-human primates grieving the loss of close family member, and these date back as far as 1879, when a naturalist described a captive male chimpanzee grieving the loss of his female friend who he had been housed along with for many years. when the male chimp came across his deceased friend and could not rouse her. He screamed and tore at his hair. He tried to stop the keepers from removing her body and then spent the rest of the day moaning and crying and even uttered a sound never heard before, which was thought to be specific to his grief. Since this time, a number of examples of grief-like behavior has been observed in both captive and wild chimpanzees and in other primates. For example, primate mothers can often be seen carrying their dead infants for days and sometimes weeks, often treating them differently from their live infants with an apparent understanding that they have died. Chimpanzees carry infant corpses for, on average, 3 days after death and demonstrate behaviors interpreted as an understanding that they recognize that death has occurred. Baboon mothers carry their infants for up to 10 days after their death, and in one particular case, a snub-nosed monkey held her deceased infant for 4 days before researchers removed it. She carried it, groomed it, and then the body was removed. She vocalized for days. During this time, she also withdrew from the social group. This withdrawal of normal activities such as social grooming is similar to the withdrawal seen in grieving.
Well, such behaviors are in no means restricted to some of our closest evolutionary relatives. Elephants understand when a family member has passed away. African elephants have been observed standing over a deceased herd member, often for days, rocking back and forth and pulling at the body of a dead companion in an apparent expression of grief. Elephants almost always react to a dead elephant's remains, investigating it with their trunks, touching the body gently as if obtaining information. They often run their trunk tips along the lower jaw and the tusk and the teeth, all the parts that would have been most familiar in life and most touched during greeting, the most individually recognizable parts amongst them. Asian elephants also show behaviors that seem similarly mournful. In 2013, elephant biologist Sanjita Pokharel found a dead Asian elephant on a riverbank in India, in a remote spot that was devoid of vegetation. Despite this, the body was mysteriously surrounded by lots of branches, trees, and leaves, materials that have been brought to the site by other elephants in an attempt to cover the body. Researchers have also observed Asian elephant mothers carrying their dead newborns draped over their trunks and tusks for days at a time.
Observations of dolphins have demonstrated nurturant behavior towards their dead offspring, with mothers supporting dead calves at the surface of the water. Orca mothers also show behavior similar to grief when they lose an infant, and to display distress signs similar to mourning behavior when their youngsters have been removed from them in captivity. Underwater cameraman Rodrigo Fiscon Wisman observed a female humpback whale appearing to be what he described as inconsolable after her calf was attacked and killed by a group of orcas in Mexico, describing how the mother humpback sat motionless in the water column while her male escort swam nearby, trying to comfort her by touching her gently. The two whales remained near the site for nearly a week before finally moving on. And it's not just mammals that show the emotional capacity to mourn the loss of close-by bonded individuals. Crows have been observed gathering and sharing information by mobbing and squawking when they find a dead member of their own species, and magpies seen burying their dead under twigs of grass. Grief-like behavior had been seen in wild giraffes following the death of a calf, with the mother and female members of a herd observed nudging the calf and the mother staying close to the deceased infant for a number of days, despite the calf being partly eaten by predators. A motion-activated camera trained on the dead body of a collared peccary revealed that members of the herd repeatedly returned and paid close attention to the body over a period of 10 days, sleeping next to the body and wedging their snouts under the body. This behavior only stopped after the body was eaten by coyotes. Similar grief-like behaviors have also been observed in other species and with anecdotal evidence in pilot whales, dogs, deer, monkey, ducks, and the Nobel laureate Konrad Lorenz described grief-like behavior in geese, writing, "A gray-lag goose that has lost its partner shows all the symptoms described in young human children. The eyes sink deep into their sockets, and the individual has an overall drooping experience, literally letting the head hang."
From all these examples, it appears that the experience of sorrow and loss after losing a close companion is just one of the many emotions that animals share with us. This is not surprising as many of the species live in communities of related individuals and develop close friendships across many generations, just as we do. It is clear, therefore, that many animals are highly likely to experience grief in similar ways to ourselves. Of course, many may argue that these behaviors may not represent grief as we recognize it in people. Since it is impossible for us to fully understand the emotion of others, we rely on detailed observations of behaviors that are familiar to us and appear to demonstrate individuals experiencing something akin to grief. Whilst observations of deep emotional states continue to present themselves in various species, and with our extensive knowledge of how individuals form lifelong attachments, we must consider the implications of how the loss of closely bonded individuals is likely to impact upon their emotional state. Time and time again, animals are showing behavioral responses that we recognize within ourselves as being deeply emotional in their nature. With this in mind, we must be increasingly sensitive to our own companion animals and to all of those animals under our care in zoos, sanctuaries, and research establishments, providing social animals with the opportunity to develop lifelong bonds and ultimately mourn the loss of individuals they are emotionally connected to. In this Grief Awareness Week, we should take time to support those within our communities that may be experiencing grief due to the loss of loved ones, and at the same time, recognize the complexity of the animal mind to be able to experience such deeply emotional states for themselves.
So let's now learn more in details of grief responses in more different species. And first, let's go with baboons. Chacma baboons live in social groups of between 20 and 100 individuals and have been observed carrying their dead infants for up to 10 days after their death, with the average length being 3 to 4 days. During this time, the mother grooms the dead infant frequently. Researchers suggest that mothers carry the dead infant as a way of dealing emotionally with the loss and the intense social bond mothers and infants share during life. It is believed that the mothers are aware of the death of their infants as they adopt very different behaviors to those of a live infant. For instance, dead infants are frequently carried by a limb or dragged along the ground. This is never done with live infants. Males associate with the mother and her infant during its life and are usually the fathers of the infant, protect the dead infant either by threatening observers that came close or grooming the dead infant when their mother moved away temporarily. Researchers studying wild Chacma baboons with Botswana Okavango data have also reported hormonal change in individuals following the loss of companion. One individual, an older, high-ranking female called Sylvia, was said to be obnoxious to the other females, but has one steady companion, her adult daughter Sierra. The duo spend most of their free time together, grooming each other and handling each other's babies. One day, while Anne was present, lions attacked members of the group as they foraged for tuppers in an area full of tall grass. Sierra was killed, as was a male with whom she has been consorting. Afterward, Sylvia spent a lot of time alone, staring at her feet. If she has been a human, the ecologist says, its absolute would have said she was depressed.
That is very interesting, Dino. One may wonder, what about our closest cousin, the chimpanzees? Well, evidence shows that chimpanzees carry infant corpses for, on average, 3 days after death and demonstrate behaviors interpreted as an understanding that they recognize that death has occurred. Chimpanzees researchers in the forest of Bosal in Guinea have reported mothers carrying their infants for many weeks after they died due to respiratory disease. During that time, the 2 infant corpses became mummified, but the mothers continued to groom the bodies and carried them to their day and night nests as though they were alive. Over time, the mothers began to allow others in the group to handle the corpses and went longer periods without them. Other group members showed some interest in the bodies, but almost without exception, the other chimps showed no aversion towards the corpses. In other extraordinary cases, primates who have lost their infants have been seen to compensate by treating their living older children as infants again, feeding, nest sharing, and even carrying them. In one tragic and famous case of chimpanzee grief, the sheer grief of losing a loved mother was just too much for a young male. Flynn was just 5 years old when his brother was born, and he was extremely jealous of this new arrival. So when his mother's attention was diverted to the new baby, Flynn became depressed. And sadly, their mother became sick and she and the young infant died. Flynn sunk into depression, and although his older siblings tried to care for him, he just became more listless. He would revisit nests that he had shared with his mother, sitting, staring at them for long periods of time. Although he was old enough to survive without her, the grief was so much. One night, he traveled to where his mother had died, sat staring at the sight for hours, then moved on a little, curled up, and died. He had just simply lost the will to live. An extract from Jane Goodall's Through a Window states, "Never shall I forget watching as 3 days after Flo's death, Flynn climbed slowly into a tall tree near the stream. He walked along one of the branches and then stopped and stood motionless, staring down at an empty nest. About 2 minutes, he turned away, and with the movements of an old man, he climbed down, walked a few steps, and then lay wide-eyed staring ahead. The nest was one which he and Flo had shared a short while before Flo died. In the presence of his big brother, Figan, Flynn had seemed to shake off a little bit of his depression. But then he suddenly left the group and raced back to the place where Flo had died again, and then sank even deeper into depression. Flynn became increasingly lethargic, refused food, and with his immune system weakened, he felt sick. The last time I saw him alive, he was hollow-eyed, gaunt, and utterly depressed, huddled in the vegetation close to where Flo had died. The last journey he had made, pausing to rest every few feet, was to the very place where Flo's body had lain. And there, Flynn stayed for several hours, sometimes staring and staring into the water. He struggled on a little further and then curled up and never moved again.
In 2008, a chimpanzee named Pansy died at the Blair Drummond Safari Park in the UK, Pansy lived with her daughter and an unrelated male and female companion. Prior to her death, she is said to have laid down in a nest made by the other apes while the group gathered around her and warmed and caresses her. Shortly before she died, all three crouched down and inspect her face very closely. They then began to shake her gently, appearing to check for signs of life after she had passed away. The adult female remained with her and held her hand, and her daughters stayed with her throughout the night and showed signs of distress. For several days, they avoided sleeping on the platform where the female had died, even though it was normally a favored sleeping spot, and remained subdued for some time after the death. Researchers at the Yerkes Research Center, Atlanta, USA, described the events surrounding the death of a chimpanzee named Amos. Days after his death, Amos remained in his nest while the others went outside. The others keep returning indoors to check on Amos. A female named Daisy gently rubbed the soft spot behind his ear and stopped soft bedding behind his back as a nurse might arrange a patient pillows. Almost died the next day. 4 days afterwards, the other act subdued, eating little. Chimpanzees have also been observed using grass stems to clean the teeth of dead individuals, mirroring our own practice of cleaning individuals following their death.
Various other incidences of other species also indicate many different forms of grief emotion displayed. For example, for collared peccaries, a motion-activated camera trained on the dead body of a collared peccary revealed that members of the herd repeatedly returned to the dead individual over a period of 10 days until the body was eaten by coyotes. This behavior suggests that individuals may be experiencing a sense of loss at the death of one of their own. The peccaries paid close attention to the body, nuzzling, biting, sniffing, and staring at it. They slept next to the carcass and even tried to lift it by wedging their snouts under the body and pushing it upward. And when a pack of coyotes approached the herd, they chased them away.
As we already mentioned before, we see that in crowds as well. When crowds gather in large groups and share the information about the local environments, when they find dead members of their own species in a particular area, and helping them to learn and avoid the same fate. And crowds have been seen forming that what scientists say a couple phonos aggregation, mopping and squawking in a big group in response to another dead crowd. Monkeys also been seen burying their dead under twigs of grass in similar way that we would bury our dead, as we briefly talked about that before.
Well, anecdotal evidence also suggests deer understand when a herd member has died, with other members of the herd visiting and spending time with their fallen companions.
Yeah, not to mention our very closely born companion animals, the dogs. A vet and a researcher, Stefania Uchadu, described a case when a dog came into her practice for treatment because he refused to eat. And she said, my colleague took blood samples, they checked the heart, everything was okay. There was no reason to explain why the dog did not eat anymore. The only difference is that his brother died 1 week ago. Research suggests dogs may show grief-related behavioral and emotional patterns when a close conspecific dies, with aspects of the latter possibly relate to the owner's emotional status. And for marine mammals like dolphins have extensive stories of similarities. Evidence exists suggesting that dolphins grieve for the loss of their family members. Observations of dolphins have demonstrate nurturing behavior towards their dead offspring. behavior like supporting dead calves, as the surveys has been documented in several dolphin species, including bottlenose dolphin, long-beak common dolphin, and Atlantic spot dolphins. On January 29, in 2019, a diseased dolphin calf was spotted in the Bay of Islands, New Zealand. The calf, proved to be stillborn, surfaced and sank gently through the water, carried on the back of its mother. The dolphin was observed carrying the tiny body for days, vocalizing throughout her loss. This tragic scene is reminiscent of Talika, a critically endangered southern resident orca who lost her calves for 1,000 miles. Talika grieved while her baby decomposed. Born on July 24th, 2018, the calf only lived about 30 minutes before she perished. For 7 straight days, her mother carried the little body with assistance from members of the pod.
Yeah, and then similar reports also dated back many years as well. On 16 March 1986, near Rockport, Texas, fishermen observed an adult dolphin that appeared to be trying to keep a calf from washing ashore on an inshore island. Several other adult dolphins were moving in a clockwise direction around the presumed mother and calf. When fishermen attempted to approach the group, the circling dolphins began tail slapping. The calf was obviously dead, bloated with its mouth open. 22nd March 1986, the Texas Marine Mammal Stranding Network was notified of a dead dolphin floating in the Corpus Christi Ship's Channel. Upon the arrival of the volunteers, an adult was observed pushing a dead calf with its rostrum. And whenever the boat approached within 50 meters, the adult would dive with the body and surface 50 meters further away. The adult then kept the dead calf at the surface as several other dolphins milked nearby. The boat engine was stopped and the boat drifted near the calf. As one of the volunteers grasped the calf's tail, the presumed mother continued to nudge the body, making it appear lifelike. When one of the observers were confident that the calf was dead, the body was lifted into the boat. The mother made several frantic rushes underneath and near the boat. Further examination of the calf revealed dolphin rig marks and bite marks. Rig marks were especially evident on the right flipper, thought to be where the adult had been holding on to the calf. The condition of the animal recovered in Record 2 was considerably worse than that described in Record 1. With the proximity of dates and distance of 19 kilometers between the two reports, it is possible that the same animals were involved in both records. And lastly, during the late spring of 1992 at the Port Mansfield jetties, tourists observed a dolphin holding a dead calf on her rostrum while swimming along the jetties. The animal swam with her dead calf for 2 days, and on the third day, the calf was seen lying on the north jetty, and the adult was swimming near the body for that day. After that, it disappeared.
And also we see on donkeys. And donkeys are not that dissimilar to us when it comes to forming and maintaining friendships and suffering psychologically if such friendships are disrupted. This includes an apparent understanding of when a herd member passes away with others spending time with the body and appearing to understand their companion has died. Due to these strong bonds, they also show signs of distress when they separate from their companion. And in a separate incident, 2 miller ducks, Harper and Coles, were rescued in 2006 from a foie gras factory in New York and brought to Farm Sanctuary. Frightened of people and suffering from hepatic lipidosis as a result of the forced feeding they had experienced, the birds upon arrival were in bad shape emotionally and physically. Harper was blind in one eye, and Cole's legs were awry because fractures in them has gone untreated. As they gradually begin to recover at the sanctuary, the two birds became inseparable. For 4 years, they spent a good deal of time together to the exclusion of other ducks. Then Cole's condition began to deteriorate. When he could no longer walk, sanctuary staff prepared to euthanize him. Believing that the opportunity could not help Harper, the staff carried out the procedure in barn where Harper could see what's going on. Then the procedure concluded. Harper first propped his motionless friend, but soon lay down next to Cole's and placed his own head and neck over Cole's. There he stayed with the body for some hours. Harper was never really the same after that. Some days he would venture to the small ponds where he has relaxed with cold, again exhibiting heightened nervousness around people. He never chose to bond with another dog. In 2 months, Harper died.
One of the most documented displays of emotions will be of elephants. Elephants understand very well when a family member has passed away. They have been observed standing over a deceased herd member often for days, rocking back and forth and pulling on the lifeless body in an expression of grief. One of these vivid ritual explorations of bones was caught on video in 2016 by a doctoral student studying elephants in Africa. Members of 3 different elephant families came to visit the body of a deceased matriarch, smelling and touching, and repeatedly passing by the corpse. Cynthia Moss, the director of the Amboseli Elephant Research Project in Kenya, describes the events surrounding the death of a matriarch named Big Tusklusk. She died of natural causes, and a few weeks later, Cynthia brought her jawbone to the research camp to determine her age at death. A few days later, Big Tusklusk's family passed through the camp. There are several dozen elephant jaws on the ground in the camp, but the family detoured right towards hers. They spent some time with it. They all touched it with their trunks, and then all of them moved on, except for one elephant. After the other left, one stayed for a long time, stroking Big Tusklusk's jaw with his trunk, fondling it and turning it. He was Butch, Big Tusklusk's 7-year-old son. One day in Kenya's beautiful Samburu Reserve, a matriarch named Eleanor Aileen collapsed. Another matriarch, Grace, rapidly approached her with facial glands streaming from emotion. Grace lifted Eleanor back fully onto her feet, but Eleanor soon again collapsed. Grace appeared very stressed and continued to try to lift Eleanor. No success. Grace then stayed with Eleanor as night fell, and during the night, Eleanor died. The next day, an elephant named Maui started rocking Eleanor's body with her foot. And during the 3rd day, Eleanor's body was attended by her own family, another family by Eleanor's closest friend Maya, and again Grace was there. And on the 5th day, Maya spent an hour and a half with Eleanor's body. And a week after her death, Eleanor's family returned and spent half an hour there. A researcher once played a recording of an elephant who had died to a family herd. The sound was coming from a speaker hidden in the thicket. The family were described as going wild calling, looking around and searching for the dead elephant's daughter call for days afterward. The researchers never again did such a thing to elephants after that.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. And more about elephants, we know that elephants sometimes cover the dead elephants with soil and vegetation, making them, as far as I'm aware, the only other animal who sometimes perform simple burials. Elephants have done the same when humans are involved on several recorded occasions. When sport hunters shot a large male elephant and his companions surround his carcass, the hunters return hours later to find that the other has not only covered the dead comrade with soil and leaves, they had covered his large head wound with mud. Asian elephants might experience distress in response to the death of conspecifics and may have some awareness of death. Researchers have chronicles several death-related behavior in Asia. Elephants, crown shots from YouTube videos, which include one rarely observed behavior of female dodgily carrying around their dead newborns, dropped over their trunks and tossed for days at a time.
Very impressive. I think there are some of the other species where people do not expect the similar kind of emotion of grief being displayed. One of the examples would be giraffes. Giraffes are very caring mothers, defending their calves at a significant risk to their own lives from predators, including prides of hungry lions. Due to the bond that develops between a mother and her infant, and to the social nature that giraffes live within, it should come as no surprise that if something terrible happens to an infant, the mother and other family members will behave in ways that we will interpret as mourning within our own families. This behavior was documented by Zoe Muller, founder of Rothschild Giraffe Project, while researching wild giraffes in Kenya. Muller followed a female giraffe she identified as F008. So in spring 2010, F008 gave birth to a calf. The young animal suffered from a deformed leg and at 1 month old had trouble walking and spent most of her time in a stationary position. So the mom, F008, stayed right by the calf's side. Muller explains that the mother could always be found next to her calf, standing with it and being vigilant to the surrounding area. Muller wrote in her observations that although giraffes sometimes synchronize behavior in a herd, such as foraging, in the case of F008, she will always be standing with her calf. The calf sadly died, presumably of natural causes, and Muller found a large number of females, including herself, near the calf, all highly vigilant and running around in apparently bizarre patterns. Females were observed approaching the carcass and nudging it with their muzzles, and then lifting their heads to look around before bending down again to nudge it again. This behavior continued for many number of days, and on the third day after the calf's death, Muller noticed F008 to seem to have left the carcass for the first time since it died, and she had moved to stand under a large tree approximately 50 meters away. However, Muller realized she had overlooked something. She discovered that the calf's carcass had been half eaten by predators and subsequently dragged under that large tree, the exact location where the mother was now standing. Muller says she found these observations fascinating as she has never seen anything like this in wild giraffes, a behavior echoing that of elephants, famous for grieving families and friends.
That's incredible. And do you remember the famous Cocos? The captive gorillas have been taught to use sign language. I watched the Cocos video for so many times, and there was this story about when she was given a kitten that as a pet and developed a strong loving bond with her feline companion. When the kitten sadly died, Coco told her trainer in sign language, cry, sad, and frown. Coco was able to clearly communicate her emotional state, and she showed her trainers that she was grieving the loss of her kitten. Coco remained withdrawn for weeks and only cheered up once she was given a new cat companion. So that's an example. If an animal can communicate to us about their grief, I think that's very similar to what we'll say to other people when we're grieving as well.
Totally agree. Horses are not excluded. They live in large social groups, and when a member of their family dies, other horses will spend time with the body and appear to understand that their friend has passed away. Same that goes to humpback whales. They have the capacity to experience grief. Underwater cameraman Rodrigo Friscone Weisman observed a female humpback whale appearing to be inconsolable after her calf was attacked and killed by a group of orcas near Roca Perdita in Mexico. The mother humpback sat motionless in a water column while her male escort swam nearby, trying to comfort her by touching her gently. The two whales remained near the site for nearly a week before finally moving on. And on Long Island, a nursing-age young humpback whale, ailing and alone but still alive, washed into the surf off Bridgehampton. A lighthouse keeper 25 miles away at Montauk described how she heard incredibly mournful whale sounds the following day, as if it was searching for its mother.
So I also see the morning reefing kind of sound in lemurs as well. A lemur researcher described that she observed after a fossa killed a sifaka lemur. After the fossa left, the family returned. His mate gave the lost call over and over. When sifakas are really lost, they give it less often, and it's higher and more energetic, but it was a low whistle, mournful, haunting, over and over again. The other member of the group, all sons and daughters of the dead male, also gave lost calls while viewing the corpse from just above it in three branches, 15 to 30 feet off the ground. Over 5 days, the lemurs returned to the body 14 times. And macaques as well, due to their strong bonds and friendship, individuals understand the emotional state of their fellow macaques, understanding when others are happy, sad, or angry. They experience positive emotions when roaming, playing, finding food, and in a social contact with each other. A negative emotion following the death of family member, with that appears to be an understanding of loss.
Orca mothers are also known to show behavior similar to grief when they lose their infant, and to display distress similar to mourning behavior when their youngsters have been removed from them in captivity. We have shared a lot of different stories of many different species. We hope today's stories about the profound grief felt by different species have touched your heart and opened your eyes to the deep emotional connections we share with the animal kingdom. As we conclude this episode on of Grief Awareness Day, let us carry with us the understanding that grief is not just human experience, but a universal one connecting us all in ways we may never fully comprehend. Thank you for joining us on this journey of empathy and awareness.
And if you found this episode interesting, do share it with your friends. I know there's a lot of us out there who are interested in delving into the life of sentience in animals. We release AFA podcast episodes every week around a wide variety of animal-related topics. So make sure to check out this and share to your friends. You can also find our podcast episodes on many platforms. So you can visit our website or check it on YouTube for more details.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening. You can find everything you need to know about our work and connect with us at asiaforanimals.com. Tune in for the next episode. Asia for Animals Coalition, a united voice for Asia's animals.